Good morning to this massive crowd at the June 11th, 2024 meeting at Henderson County Fiscal Court. We're glad you're with us. If you're watching online, and I'm sure there are many folks watching online, we're glad you're with us as well. We'll begin as we always do with an invocation. If you'd please stand and join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, please watch over this body as we make the best decisions we can for our community, its citizens, our friends and neighbors and families. Please watch over those families that have lost loved ones in the last few weeks, as well as the family of Frank Damroth, one of our team members. Please put your hand of blessing on them. Please watch over our first responders and health workers and our men and women in uniform, both here and abroad. I say these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
We join in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Measure Southard.
Here.
Measure Tompkins.
Here.
Measure Putman.
Here.
Measure Starks.
Here.
Measure Berry.
Here.
Judge, before we go, could we have a moment of silence for Frank?
Yes. Thank you, and I appreciate that, Butch. For those of you who don't know, Frank Damroth is a member of our team here at county government, and he has suffered what we believe is a severe heart attack. And I don't know of his status this morning, but his prognosis is very, very poor.
Passed.
Did he pass away? Yeah. So we will. He was a good man, and we will miss him. Okay, you have in your packets the May 28th, 2024 fiscal court meeting. After a period of review, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other additions, clarifications, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, a lot of things to cover today. And in your packets, you had the Planning Commission recommendation for case number 1166, a conjoining of properties, and unless there's any more comments, we will recognize that we received that and move on. We have to do a couple perfunctory things that are required every year as we head into a new fiscal year, and one of them is to hold a public hearing regarding our decisions about the use of LGEA funds in our new fiscal year. For those of you who've seen this before, perhaps like Bill, it's a little unusual, but it's the law. So I will entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody from the public who would like to make a comment about LGEA? After we'll come up and ask Brenda Ryder, did you have something you wanted to?
She needs to present first.
Okay, go ahead. Yep.
Henderson County anticipates the receipt of LGEA Local Government Economic Assistance Funds for fiscal year 25 to be approximately $1,681,863. These funds will be used for general health, sanitation, public safety, social services, non-for-profit agencies, and resurfacing roads. Some of the main sources of the revenue are for the fiscal year 25 is $143,000 from waste hauling franchise fee receipts, $500,000 from coal severance, $300,000 from mineral severance tax. Also, a transfer from the general fund to the LGEA fund of $724,963. Appropriations, while this list is not all-inclusive, for the LGEA funds includes volunteer fire departments, 911 communications center, landfill, Canoe Creek Maintenance, Humane Society, Senior Citizens Programs, Boys and Girls Club, Human Rights, Shelter for Women and Children, as well as Henderson Music W.C. Handy Festival,
And others, obviously.
and others, yes.
Okay. Any questions of Brenda about that? I will open this up to anybody from the audience or the public who would like to make a statement or offer an opinion on those appropriations. I will ask again. I have to ask 3 times. And finally, anybody want to make a statement? Okay. Anything else? We will now go entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, we also will have to have a public hearing about county road aid. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Henderson County anticipates the receipt of county road aid funds to be approximately $1,416,641. These funds are primarily funded by the state motor fuel taxes and should be used for construction, reconstruction, and maintenance of county roads. Distribution of fuels tax is based on population, road mileage, and land area of the county. The distribution to be received for the county for fiscal year 25 is 60% to be received around August of 2024, 30 to 35% to be received January of 2025, remaining to be received July of 2025. Other sources of county road funds are from truck license distributions from the state and fund transfers from the general fund to the road fund.
Again, I'll ask if anybody from the public would like to make a comment about our use of county road aid. I'll ask a second time and a third time for any public comment. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Many of you know that our first attempt at offering the Planning Commission a battery energy storage system ordinance ended up with a lot of questions and kind of veered away from the main points of the ordinance. And at the end of that meeting, I offered to the Planning Commission to pull the ordinance back, not have it considered. I think it was about to be tabled and then would probably not have been reconsidered for some time, to get a new ordinance to consider on the July agenda for the Planning Commission. We had to get the draft to them by this morning. So knowing that a few weeks ago, the Planning Commission passed a BESS ordinance for the city, we reviewed that document and drafted a ordinance for the county that closely mirrored the language in the city's ordinance, with some additional tweaks that reflected reality in the county and what is true in the county compared to some of the structures they have in the city. It is in your packet, and I believe you had a chance to review it. I want to say, importantly, that while we do need to get a basic framework of an ordinance on the books in order to begin to understand the best way to locally regulate these battery storage systems coming in, this ordinance, this draft ordinance, is not the final word we'll have with how they are, what they are required potentially to do, what the Planning Commission might ask them to do additionally in site review meetings, what the Board of Zoning Adjustment might eventually ask them to do. And in addition to submitting this draft, I'm going to be convening a committee of local first responders, a representative of Fiscal Court, a representative of the Planning Commission, and consultants to help us draft what I'm calling a suggested safety guideline that we can submit at a later date when we've really drilled down on this to both Planning Commission and BOZA, the BOZA members, to have as they consider these relatively new technologies. And also, in the meantime, the federal government is also working right now to come up with new guidelines and standards for battery energy storage systems. And those, I'm sure, will come into play. The use of those is reflected in the ordinance that I have before you. It anticipates new rules coming down from the federal government and the eventual adoption of those NFPA guidelines by the state. So I think the general draft, the general language in the draft accounts for those, protects the public, but also keeps the process moving for applications for these facilities. One thing that is very specific both in the city ordinance and in ours is the input of local first responders before a permit can be issued. In the city's case, those two people are the fire chief and the city fire marshal. In our ordinance, because we don't have a single chief, we put that responsibility on the volunteer fire department chiefs in whose district the applicant are proposing a facility, as well as the state fire marshal's office. We don't have a dedicated fire marshal in the county as well. So those two entities, the impacted volunteer fire chief and the state fire marshal, will have input, and without their approval, permits will not move forward. I think that gives them a chance to learn more about their responsibilities as first responders or regulators at the state level about these systems before they're allowed to move forward. It protects the public, and it also gives, I think, a mission to the companies applying to communicate and work with local first responders to make them comfortable about having to deal with these systems in case something goes wrong. So in the last meeting, there were several questions raised about safety. There were several questions raised about response and ultimate responsibility in case of emergencies. And both this draft ordinance and the safety guidelines will help put together and submit, I think will cover those questions. Whether or not they raise to the level of satisfying the local volunteer fire department chief or satisfying the state fire marshal is still to be seen. It'll be their choice. So any questions about it? What we have to do now is get a vote to refer this back to Planning Commission.
Judge, when you were saying who's going to be on this, you're going to select some people. Is emergency management, Kenny,
Yes.
is he involved in this?
He will be, yes.
He will
yes,
be?
Yes. Yeah. As you know, one of his primary duties is to help respond to hazardous material issues. And as we've come to learn, lithium and lithium batteries and other components of lithium batteries can definitely be considered hazardous materials.
If there were a fire, it would get pretty hot. As you've seen with those Teslas.
That's an understatement.
You know.
Those are among the safety questions that are being asked, and the state is asking as well. And in my conversations with Representative State Fire Marshal's office, they are considering these things very closely right now, in part because the new lithium battery plant in Elizabethtown that's going to have huge amounts of lithium batteries on site, lithium batteries being made, lithium as a material. So there are a lot of questions about how to deal with those and the potential risks.
This, one more time, one question, Judge. Our volunteer fire departments, is there a certain amount of training that they're going to have to, in the event there was a...
I think among both the requirements in the ordinance or the items it touches on is preparedness and training for local first responders. And in the safety guidelines, we will hit on that as well, because I think in our original ordinance, we had required that the companies provide training and equipment for local first responders, and I think that is something that will definitely be back in play for the new documents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the adjustments that we made to the ordinance will better suit it to what our needs are in the county, because we have to have an ordinance in place in a beginning to all this, because it is part of our new reality, and this gives us a good place to start to keep everybody safe, but keep things moving, like you said. So
Yeah.
I think we've got a good place to start here.
And I want to clarify, I don't think that this new draft that we put together is less restrictive or less mindful of safety. It's just, I think, a simpler document. And it's an easier ordinance for the planning commission to digest.
Much more clear verbiage, and it is easier to digest. It's to the point and provides necessary safety requirements from my perspective. So I think again, it's a better document overall.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, any questions?
Is there any idea how many of the tier two that they would be, are they going to be all tier two, or is there going to be some tier ones? Is it-
Well,
their
there
proposals?
are several tier one systems in existence now. A lot of people who have home solar arrays
Right.
have what they call a battery backup, a little system that saves some power in case your power goes out, and it pulls power off the solar arrays to store and then put towards your home electricity in case something happens. Those are very small BESS systems, and those are accounted for in the ordinance. They're allowed. They're not going to be as restricted nearly as much as battery farms, industrial strength battery.
Not nearly the danger.
Those already exist. They're being used.
Yeah.
The really new development is the tier two large battery farms. That's the new development for communities. And again, these are what are called peaker facilities. They're designed to release power onto the grid at peak demand times. Back when we relied almost exclusively on fossil fuels, the way to handle peak demand was to go out to the coal pile right outside your door and throw more coal into the boiler and up the number of amps being put out. Of course, that is now not the way it used to be, and there are other methods for providing extra power at peak times. And the new technology is in many ways still, communities are learning about these, but I think California and Texas have proven that you need some stability sources if you're not going to use coal or natural gas exclusively. And right now, these are the answer. But the technology is evolving and the uses are evolving, and responding to emergencies with them is an evolving strategy. So, as Master Tompkins, this is the new reality. They're coming down the pike. We have two applicants now, one in the county, one in the city. It won't be the last, I'm sure.
I would just note for the record, this idea of a document that's a suggested safety guideline, if it's something that the fiscal court wants, ultimately, I think that should be part of an ordinance.
And when it's drafted, when it's finished, we can reconsider that, how we want to treat it.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll need a motion to refer this back to Planning Commission.
So move.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
So what Steve was asking, Steve, or saying, do we need to put it in there before we send it to planning commission?
I believe the judge's plan is to send this while, I don't want to take words out of your mouth. I know this is kind of your brainchild, but you want to work on this suggested safety guidelines kind of in parallel with what the planning commission is doing, and then come back once those suggested safety guidelines are in place, and then
Figure out what we want to make them. I think, just as the city did, and they're not going to, as far as I know, have these detailed offerings of future safety guidelines. I'd like to do that, but it's going to take a while on that. We really got to drill back down. My goal is, and I hope the fiscal court's goal is, to get a framework in place for a basic ordinance, and then use this extra information, these extra recommendations, either as an addendum to this ordinance or as some sort of suggested guideline. Does that make sense? Yeah. But,
So we'll address this again. It's
Yes.
just, this is getting, okay.
and I think one of the potential, I don't want to say flaws, but one of the potential stumbling blocks for the last draft was we tried to get very detailed about some of the safety guidelines, some of the response protocols, and we didn't do a good enough job. We just didn't do a good enough job of making it clear. It was poorly written in some sections, and I'll take blame for that. So backing off, simplifying the basic ordinance, and addressing some of these very specific protocols for safety in a separate document that we can really take some time with, drill back down on, and make clear, I think is worthwhile.
But it's important to note that the document as is has enough safety measures in place via the subject matter experts, the chiefs, the fire marshal, to allow us time to work on that to be more comprehensive. So that's where it gives us time. We're doing our due diligence. If that makes sense.
Yeah, on the safety guidelines, yeah. So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and I appreciate your patience on that. Nick, we had a recommendation from the Flood Mitigation Board for the upcoming fiscal year's mowing contract for Canoe Creek, and you want to make some observations about it?
Yeah, these are, you have got in your packet, we had a special flood board meeting for the new mowing contracts, and you see the first place, second place bidders in there. There was a change of guard this year for the, for the mowing contracts. Just giving you all a, kind of preview of it. The city has to make the recommendation to approve that. Since the county's part of that flood board, you all have to also, as a city member, make a recommendation to approve who has the contract, who get the contract. The apparent lowest bidder would be the approved.
Have they chosen one? Did they choose one, or is
Yes.
it's about to go out to bid?
No,
No,
that is the bids.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
So,
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Who are they recommending as the lowest bidder?
Hazix.
Hazix, okay.
Yes, they were the first place. ENR Trucking was the second place bidder, but Hazix came in with the better price.
Okay.
And Buzzy has talked with the contractor, and they're well aware of what they are, what there are to do, so they can perform all duties.
Okay. So the recommendation is to accept a bid of Hazex, and we have a motion to approve. We have a
Second.
We have a second. Any other questions about that? Quick question. Can you tell me generally how it compares to a previous contract? Is it?
It's nominally cheaper as far as what they were bid. You saw the second place bidder, and he has gotten it for the last 3 or 4 contracts. And this year the Hazix came in with the better price, both for mowing and for maintaining ditch cleaning out, slope management was all done through Hazix, with a better price. So.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right.
Thank you. And you got a road department purchase you want to tell us about?
Yes, we have money in the budget. We've got a need for our recycling department to get another truck. This truck, runs all day long pulling containers, 5x8s, and the pull behind containers that are separated containers all day. Take them from the businesses we have throughout the county and the city, and we take them in to the county department for recycling. That truck that we have, we've done some repairs on it. It's kind of at the point of need to be replaced. We have an opportunity to get a truck for that one before the end of the year. We used state contract, and I also grabbed 3 of the comparable bidders, which we assumed to be the lowest one, which actually it was Dan Cummings at $47,895, and that's for a four-wheel drive Dodge Ram 2500. This is will be capable of carrying everything that we need to carry or need to pull for the road for the recycling department.
It's a budgeted item. It doesn't really require a vote, and you've heard that he took the necessary steps to make sure we stay on the right side of the rule book on quotes and using state contract. Would you like us to take a vote on declaring that old truck surplus at your discretion?
Yes. Not good? Either way.
We need the resolution.
Yeah.
All right, I'll set that up and we'll do it next quarter.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Next is the memorandum of understanding that we have been intending to vote on for United Way's, for want of a better term, housing of our vetting process, and the amount was $7,500. And for consulting with my team here, instead of merely putting them on the LGEA list and making that contribution that way, we thought official contract was necessary, a memorandum of understanding. And so you have that in your packet. Very much appreciate them helping us set this up. And first year, I think, went pretty smoothly. You always expect some tweaks to be made as we go along, but I was pleased with the way it turned out. And Magistrate Starks, I think, was on that committee, and Magistrate Tompkins. I think United Way provided the help we had hoped they would.
Absolutely, I agree.
So $7,500 well spent, I would say, but we need to have a motion to approve the memorandum.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thanks. I do want to say thanks to Steve and to the city attorney, Don Kelsey, as well, for putting in a lot of time and effort to get this hashed out. I know it wasn't quite as easy as it probably should have been.
Sometimes the simplest ideas have the most difficult details.
Thank you. And another item we've been working on for a while, and has been in front of you more than once, is our renewal of an MOU for the STOP program through the Warm Center, the opioid education effort. This will be going into the second year now, and we have split the costs with the city so far. You remember the presentation that Ms. Gentry gave us, where they're asking for a little bit more money this year, from $60,000 to $70,000. And we again are going to keep asking them to report back regularly and make sure that they are turning in all the reporting data they're required to under these opioid fund stipulations. But I think it's worthwhile, and from what Ms. Gentry has presented us, they're out there educating and also talking a lot about availability of Narcan, which is important. So if pleasure's court, I'll have the clerk read the resolution.
Resolution approving memorandum of understanding between the City of Henderson, Henderson County Fiscal Court, and the Center for Addiction Recovery of Henderson Incorporated, and authorizing the county judge executive to execute all necessary documents. Whereas both the Fiscal Court and the City of Henderson, Kentucky, have received funding from the National Opioid Settlement to be used in combat opioid crisis in Henderson County. And whereas pursuant to KRS 15.291 5B22, the use of these funds to provide public education about opioids is an appropriate expenditure of these funds. And whereas the Center for Addiction Recovery of Henderson Incorporated has been in existence and provided services to individuals struggling with addiction to their families since 2011, and whereas since January 1st, 2023, there have been 40 fentanyl-related overdoses in Henderson County, and whereas the Center for Addiction Recovery of Henderson has developed a public education program wherein it will provide education on the dangers and substance misuse targeting opioids, specifically fentanyl, to the parents, guardians, caregivers, and family unit members of school and college-age dependents living in Henderson County. And whereas Henderson County and the City of Henderson wish to fund the implementation of the CAR public education program jointly in the amount of $70,000 to be borne equally by each government entity. And whereas the Henderson Fiscal Court would like to partner with the City of Henderson to support CAR's public education program using funds received from the National Opioid Settlement, and the parties desire to memorialize their agreement as outlined in the attached memorandum of understanding and to comply with both state and law and regulations on how upon the opioid settlement funds can be spent. Now therefore be it resolved by the Henderson Fiscal Court as follows. 1, the attached memorandum of understanding between the City of Henderson, Henderson County Fiscal Court, and the Center for Addiction Recovery of Henderson is hereby approved. The County Judge Executive is hereby directed to execute the agreement on behalf of Henderson County Fiscal Court and is further directed to execute any and all other necessary and appropriate documents required to effectuate the intent thereof. The Henderson County Treasurer is hereby directed to provide funding for the CARP Public Education Program in the amount of $35,000 from Henderson County's National Opioid Settlement Funds in compliance with the attached Memorandum of Understanding, KRS 15.2915B22, and all other applicable laws.
Get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
So, we're splitting that with the city, right? That just give an amount, did it?
Shared, born equally, $70,000 born equally.
Okay, I missed
by-
that part.
Yeah.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Another resolution, our MOA with the state over our substance abuse program at the jail, and I'll let Jailer Todd explain that a little bit more.
All right, good morning.
Good morning, Jailer Todd.
Since we've increased our SAP programs and having new programs, we're allowed to increase our state inmates. So we've come into an agreement with the DOC about how many increased staff or increased SAP state inmates we could have. And this is just a boiler agreement that we had last time, except for the increase of inmates. And so I guess Mr. Gold has reviewed it, and we just want to bring it to y'all's attention.
I've reviewed it as to form and legality for the
Right.
Henderson County. It sets aside up to 50 male beds, up to 60 female beds, and 20 medication-assisted treatment beds for a total of $302,532.80. I will say that there were 2 attachments referenced in this agreement, medication reimbursement rate and annual limitations for medical-assisted treatment reimbursements.
Right.
Those are 2 attachments that
You don't have yet? We don't either.
the jailer's not been sent.
Yeah, we
So-
have made contact. They will be in the office, my office tomorrow. We'll address that and get that information and get it to you. And so,
Can we pass the resolution pending those documents?
or it don't matter.
If that's the will of the court.
Or we can bring it back.
You
But,
don't
I
expect
mean,
any wrinkles out of those, anything unusual? I want to say I love the idea of expanding the SAP program, its substance abuse program for inmates, obviously, and overcoming those challenges gives them a better shot at overcoming recidivism, and it also helps provide revenue to the jail.
Right.
Any other questions?
So the only way this, if we pass this, the only way it passes is if we get those
Documents.
we've looked back in the past. Doesn't have any records where we received.
Those attachments are for,
Fantastic.
specifically with regard to medication-assisted
Right.
treatment, and I think that's relatively new
Right.
within the corrections world. So.
Yeah, I have spoken with the medical department, and they're looking into it.
That's
But
huge.
that could be
though.
pretty expensive, could it
Yeah.
not?
I think
I don't know what the cost, we don't know what we don't know.
The only reason I bring that up is
Yeah,
if
we
it's a
do that.
big deal to do, I'm okay with doing it this way. But if it's not a big deal, I would just feel more comfortable having it in hand and not having to go back and recreate work. In either way, Jailer Todd, I don't know.
Is it okay if we wait one more week?
Yeah, I mean, they'll be in there tomorrow, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll review it.
Sounds like a great plan.
But I mean, it's not, we do that now. I mean, we provide the medical now.
Medication-assisted treatment is like Suboxone,
Yeah.
things like that,
Mhm.
like what
Yeah.
is happening at some of the
We do
private
that
clinics
now.
like Brightview and places like that.
It's not unusual at all.
Right. And if it's not a big deal, I don't know.
Yeah. We
That's
just
why I
don't
was
have the
asking.
documentation showing.
Right.
Just, we don't know what the cost is of adding another 50 people and medication. I mean, if they're going to reimburse us, I'd like to have it written before I approve this.
Is there a
Myself.
problem maybe doing this next meeting?
They would like to have this by tomorrow, so they can get it and have the upper management sign off, so we can start this thing July the 1st.
So how confident are you that nothing you receive tomorrow will impact our ability to cover the cost and perhaps create more revenue?
Nothing. I say we're fine. But I mean,
If Taylor Todd's fine, that's good enough for me.
Any other questions? I understand
I mean, that's
The
just, I was
questions,
just
but-
concerned because it could be significant cost. I mean, I'm not sure what that, drug price point is, but it could be significant when you multiply it by 50 or, 60, 110 if you had the 60 women.
20
20.
Oh, 20, okay.
They-
sorry.
20,
okay.
Those were separated out.
Right,
but-
okay, I'm sorry.
But it is, it's not insignificant. And Jailer Todd, I wasn't trying to derail things.
No,
I just
I'm
wanted to
good.
be
I'm good. I
transparent with the
understand.
court that we
look-
hadn't received
And we
those
understand
attachments.
that too.
Yeah.
We understand that, yeah.
I just think that if
We provide it,
Yeah, if they wanted it to be done tomorrow, then I would have thought they'd have got it to us. That kind of concerns me.
Well, I signed it on the 29th, and then Steve, after he reviewed it, and
Yeah.
I don't mind myself moving forward if Jailer Todd feels
Well,
confident.
I mean, it's not,
that medication we've been providing
yeah.
all this time has never been an issue, correct? I mean,
No,
but-
it's not an issue. I mean, we provide it now.
Yeah,
They
and
reimburse
And the
us now?
reimbursement's been,
Yeah, I'm not sure the reimbursement. I mean, I know they pay us for the inmates, and this is a $10 more
Per inmate.
for inmate.
let me ask you, this kind of going across the state for this reimbursement, it's all new, so
Yeah.
Eh.
And we didn't, we didn't discuss it over a conference. I mean, it wouldn't, this is nothing different than we have been doing all along. Only thing we're doing is increasing the number of inmates.
And it does, there is, as far as
It's-
termination,
well,
there's a 30-day out
Yeah.
with written
And
notice.
there-
If
Yeah, I
he
just-
gets into it and he's like, hey, this is busting the
Yeah,
budget, he can pull the
Absolutely.
plug.
There is a 30 days out for either party for any reason, so.
And just being new, I was just curious of
Yeah.
the, responsibility, so I wanted to ask that question. And again, if Jailer Todd's comfortable, I'm good. That's all I needed to hear.
If I can point out, this is the only jail in the state that, for this contract this year. It lists all the different facilities and what exactly they're getting for SAP beds and everything else. Henderson County is the only one with a MAT program,
That's right.
so
That's true.
that may be part of the problem.
But it's also a compliment to
Yeah.
our facility.
Agreed.
Judge, I'd move to approve.
Well, let's read the
Oh, Okay,
resolution.
you got to read it first.
Resolution authorizing the county judge executive to execute the memorandum of agreement contract with the Commonwealth of Kentucky Department of Corrections for Substance Abuse Program, SAP beds and services for felony inmates with substance abuse disorders. Whereas the Kentucky Department of Corrections contracts with local jails to provide the substance abuse program beds for programming for felons with substance abuse disorder, and whereas the Kentucky Department of Corrections has identified the need for 50 male beds and 60 female SAP beds at the Henderson County Detention Center, for which they will receive Henderson County Detention Center, for which we will reimburse Henderson County Detention Center additional per diem. And whereas the Henderson County Detention Center wishes to provide these services in accordance with the terms and conditions requested by the Department of Corrections, and whereas the Henderson County Fiscal Court deems it in the best interest of Henderson County to enter into agreement with the Kentucky Department of Corrections for the Henderson County Detention Center to provide these services. Now therefore be it resolved that as the Henderson County Fiscal Court authorizes and directs County Judge Executive Brad Schneider to execute the attached documents entitled Contract, Memorandum of Agreement, and memorandum of agreement standard terms and conditions to establish a staff program in accordance with the terms thereof at the Henderson County Detention Center to execute any and all other necessary and appropriate documents required to effectuate the intent thereof.
I'll just clarify one thing. It does appear in that contract as if Pike County also has MAT beds. And a lot of the other counties have something called MOUD beds, which stands for medications for opioid use disorder. I'm not sure what the difference is between that and MAT, but it does seem like within this particular contract, there are, the DOC is going down the road of different types of medication being used for drug treatment.
You heard the resolution. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will say the jail is heading towards a year in the black. Good to see. Great job. on their
Amazing
part.
job, I agree.
Every year, we, heading into a new fiscal year, we pass a resolution fixing compensation for all of our employees and officers. This is based on our new fiscal year budget and budgets turned in by each of the departments, including mine. So we have to go ahead and vote on this. So we have a resolution to that effect. I'll have the clerk read the resolution.
A resolution relating to the Henderson County Fiscal Court fixed compensation and reappoint county employees for the fiscal year 24-25. Whereas the judge executive is authorized to reappoint county employees with the approval of fiscal court pursuant to KRS 67.7107. Whereas pursuant to KRS 64.530, the fiscal court wishes to fix the reasonable compensation of every county officer and employee except those named in KRS 64.535. And whereas the statute requires all fiscal court fix the reasonable compensation of all employees, even elected officials which are not specifically exempted. Now therefore be it resolved by the fiscal court, County of Henderson, Kentucky as follows. Pursuant to KRS 64.530, the reasonable compensation of all full-time, part-time, and seasonal employees of the county, other than those employees enumerated in KRS 64.535, is fixed in accordance with the attached list of said appointments, employees, and their compensation, which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Can you get a motion to approve those?
So move.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next in your packets is the regular sheriff's tax settlements and their VFD recap for the year. You have the motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions about those? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything more to report?
No, sir.
I know it's been busy lately, a lot of unusual happenings out in the county, and some are rather, tragic, but I know and happening at all times of the day and night. But I appreciate everything our sheriff's department does to help respond to those and keep people safe, so please send our compliments to your team, and will do. Mr. Gold, your report.
Judge, I've got two checks today. First is,
Motion
move to
to
accept.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Two checks today, Judge. First is interest in the amount of $100.48 and a flow-through from the city $458.33, bringing today's total to $558.81, and the fiscal year total to date, $189,380.20.
Need a motion to approve those?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That will call Treasurer Ryder back up for our second reading of our budget amendment.
This is the second reading of Budget Amendment Number 5 for the current fiscal year. This is amending into the current fiscal year budget unbudgeted receipts into the opioid settlement fund of $150,000 for the settlement payments revenue line. The corresponding appropriation line of the opioid settlement fund is the opioid fund distributions. Again, the total budget amendment's $150,000.
This not only makes sure we have enough money to provide the payment for the STOP program, but also next meeting we'll be voting on funding the Homeless Coalition's plan that will involve a lot of opioid and drug addiction related activities, so we're amending this in to be able to make that payment. Any other questions of Treasurer Ryder? A motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
You have received the transfers, and they are as presented. This is redistributing appropriations within the existing budget, which is necessary to get to the end of the fiscal year in the positive for specific lines.
Any questions about those?
Move to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I will say we've been able to make transfers and do what we need to do on these line items, and we still have, I think, over $200,000 left in contingency in the general fund, which is a good sign. Not scraping the bottom of the barrel in that line item, but so thanks for the work. And we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
For claims from the general fund to Sonny Bevan, Amy Bunch, Susan Denton, Larry Hall, Alan Taylor, and Amy Taylor. This is $580 for each of these individuals for the May 2024 election and is to come from the election officer's appropriation line. To the Henderson County Clerk, Renisa Abner, $750. Henderson County Sheriff, $600. Beverly Bailey, $600. And Jeff Buckley, $600. These are also for the May 2024 election and is to come from the election officer's appropriation lines. To Lowe's, $530.76. This is for miscellaneous supplies and is to come from renewals and repairs courthouse appropriation line. From the road fund to Dan Cummins, $47,895. This is for the 2024 Dodge Ram truck that was earlier approved for recycling and is to come from the recycling motor vehicles appropriation line. Also from the road fund to Hertz Mobile Power Wash, $750, and this is for blast and painting services and is to come from the maintenance, repairs, equipment appropriation line. From the jail fund to Advanced Document Solutions, $917.65. This is for the copier lease and is to come from the data processing equipment appropriation line. To U.S. Bank, which is the credit card, $3,507.50. The majority of this is to come from the equipment repairs and maintenance and the kitchen supplies appropriation lines.
Move to pay the claims.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions of Brenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. A couple items I'd like to bring up before we go to the county. As you heard, our friend Frank Damreth passed away after a unfortunate health issue, and the reality is we must fill that position. He was a part-time courthouse custodian. His primary responsibility was overseeing cleaning crews that we contract in, making sure they did their job the best of their ability, both here and at the Judicial Center. It's an important position. I'd like a motion that allowing us to go ahead and fill that position at Frank's pay rate of $13.57 an hour, and we'll try to get that done as quickly as possible.
moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions about that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Also, as you recall, Riverport Director Ben Weithman came in and asked us to consider waiving a county residency requirement for members of the Riverport Board, and they were especially focused on one member of the board, Tony Crampy, who's served that board well, but a job took him to forced his family to move to Owensboro. He has now been hired as the new CFO at Pittsburgh Tank and Tower, and anticipates moving back to our community soon as possible. In the meantime, though, the board would love to keep him involved, and his term is about due. So, County Attorney Gold did a lot of research in addition to Kurt Wiesen, and it will require an ordinance change to waive that requirement. And I believe members of the board have suggested the waiver not be permanent, but temporary. Either the course of the 3-year term for Tony Crampy, or until he moves back to our community and establishes residence here. That is, I think, is the proposal they're floating. But we will need, it is an ordinance, so it will need 2 readings. And we will have to draft up the waiver in the ordinance. And so I guess what I'd like is some input and maybe a vote on to move forward with having that waiver installed in the ordinance. Again, it's temporary, and if and when Mr. Crampy moves back to our community, it can go away, for want of a better term.
So is it the time frame on this, the variance, is it going to be 1 year? Or I'm just asking, I'm asking.
I think, with what Butch is saying, I think we need to put a limit on it. I don't have a problem doing a waiver, I guess it'd be, but it's not going to be permanent.
Right.
It's, he's moving back, he needs to get back here, because they need to be local.
I think the only consideration that might delay his return at all is kids. He's got kids in school, and they've been in Owensboro for over a year now. And I do think absolutely we need a time limit on it, on what we pass.
I thought the proposal was no more than the extension of his term,
Yeah, 3 years.
which would be 36
4
months.
years. The term's 4 years.
Oh, 4 years.
My suggestion on the drafting of this, as we're looking at it, if the fiscal court wants to choose to start having, if the fiscal court wants to do this, obviously that's something that may be of interest to other boards and commissions that the court has, and that's something that I think the idea of making it narrow is really good, but you can't draft an ordinance with an exception for one person.
Mhm.
That's, so what, Section 4 of the ordinance that was passed in, I believe it was January of 1970, January 5th, 1970, would be within that Section 4 where the statement that it says, all members appointed shall reside within Henderson County, and each shall have knowledge and/or experience in matters relating to river transportation or river port facilities. Is to follow that up, just basically insert a sentence that says something along the lines of the foregoing notwithstanding, the residency requirement would not be in effect until, and then whatever date you want to put in there. And that would be a blanket for all members of that board. That would not be, again, you can't draft something that just gives an exemption for one person. It's got to be something that applies equally. But it can be time limited.
It can't be?
It can. It
Well,
may
'cause I
absolutely
personally
be
think
time
4
limited.
years is too long.
But you can't.
Right. I mean, you could say, for the fiscal year, for the next fiscal year, you could say, December of 2025. You can say, you can pick a date because basically what you would be doing would be putting something in there that says that the prior residency requirement that would still be in there would not apply until a certain date, and then after that date, it would still apply.
Yep. Steve,
Understand that.
if I understood you, this kind of opened up Pandora's box, so,
I do think
Different.
there is a precedential value to this, and that's why I think your idea of making it as narrow as possible, in the initial discussion seemed to be very about,
well, you could
this
have
one individual.
You could have
but
a whole
you-
board that lived in wherever.
And that's another problem too. If we do it for 4 years, like Steve said, we can't do it for one person. So that opens up that board for 4 years to anybody that might want to apply. So,
Yeah, but you'd like to narrow it down to perhaps 2 years?
And
Fiscal year.
ultimately, the appointments are still made by the judge. So
still gets,
I can use my discretion
you
to
could,
how far down this road we want to go with appointments. So,
right, but it still gets blurry.
Yeah. And we could probably narrow it even more, that they must still maintain Kentucky residency,
yeah.
if that helps
It was
at all.
mentioned about.
That was
Yeah.
brought up
going
last
across the
time.
river.
Yeah.
There's also the concern about other communities having river ports as well.
Sure.
But yes, the appointments are made by the county judge with approval of the fiscal court, so that those approvals still have to come to the fiscal court for approval as well. But I can draft it up however you all want. I'll take all of your input and come back next meeting with a proposed draft ordinance to, as narrowly as possible, tailor this in a way to do what the fiscal court wants to do, but in a way that, we're not passing something
Yeah.
I'm
narrowly
okay with
for
giving
one
it a
person.
24-month extension with the stipulation that it maintains a Kentucky residency.
Put that in the form of a motion. So we have 2-year limit, 2-year,
I make the
Limitation.
motion to make it a 2-year maximum time limit, along with having a Kentucky residency
2 years from the,
from the,
end of the current term.
At the end of this term.
at the end of this term.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You done made the motion, so.
I would say the one concern about that is I believe the board members all have, they have staggered
Staggering,
terms.
yeah.
So if we say 2 years from the current terms, that might put some of them, if
Okay,
they were
so-
just recently reappointed, pretty far
We
out.
could start it at the fiscal year then.
Yeah,
So I
okay,
would,
that-
I would
they're-
probably suggest a date.
Yeah.
If
2
you can
years.
make it a
Two-
July
2
1 of
years
some date or a
from-
January
From the
1.
beginning of,
So July 1, well, when does the term, do you remember when the terms begin? Start of July?
It depends on the term.
Right.
Depends on the term.
All of them are different.
yeah.
His term is due to expire 6/30/24. Technically.
Make it the
he-
start of this fiscal year,
Technically, he
2 years
should
from that date.
have resigned as
Yeah.
soon as he moved out of the county.
Yeah. How about
What it-
July 1, 2026
Okay.
as the limit?
Suits me.
We could do this, and we can go back and change it, right? You can change the ordinance
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So I'm not crazy about wavering or making these variants in it at all, but I understand the need.
Yeah.
And he is a very important individual on that board, I got it. But
And the river port's very important to the community.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'd like to see what Steve's got in mind as far as how narrow. I know we can change it. But again, if you got 4 of them wanting to do it, that's an extreme, but it's an example that it could really
That
get
was
out
my
of hand.
concern about the terms thing, yeah. But I'll draft something up and get that to the judge for his review, and
He's going to base his draft on what we vote on.
yes.
So.
Right now, my notes say 24 months Kentucky residency for Riverport Board. And with that, whatever we do, sunsetting July 1, 2026.
Is that your motion?
You live with that?
Yeah, I can do it, but with the understanding that we may consider changing this after this is over.
Then yes,
You know,
that's my
I-
motion.
Yes.
This works for me in the short term, let's just say it.
So we do have a motion. Do we
I'll
have a
second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Is there any way we could just, at the end of his term, put somebody else in place until, for the period of time for him to,
I think the Riverport Board can propose anything to us. We would still have to vote on that.
you see, that way we wouldn't have to change the ordinance at all. We could just put a interim in
I-
there until he
It'd
died.
be my estimation that the board would not want to, put an interim in and then take him back out, take her back out, potentially. I think, I don't know about that. We do
Well,
have a
they-
motion and a second, though.
They did talk about how they let their like board member training, associate
They
board
had
member
two,
thing
I think.
lapse.
I think they're going to.
They said
two
they're
they're
going to
gonna
lapse. This
reinstitute
would be a
that, I
nice
think.
potential onboarding for somebody. But, that would.
I know
take
they've got two people
input
that they
from you.
have brought on board since,
Yes.
As associates.
as associates.
Associates, yeah.
Correct.
They're not members of the board. They are-
Correct.
they are-
Not voting members.
They're
observing.
basically training.
Right.
So we do have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
That makes me think about it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Now we'll go to good of the county. Anybody in the audience like to say anything for good of the county? We will go around the horn then. Master Starks?
Thank you, Judge, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for all the hard work. And boy, coming in this morning with blue sky and 75 degrees on a 11th day of June. Life is good here in Henderson County, not only in the 5th, but all throughout the county. And so enjoy this beautiful weather we've been given. And we've got some great things coming up. Juneteenth is right around the corner. We've got Handy Festival right close on its heels. Again, I just want to thank all the department heads. We are just a meeting away from wrapping up another fiscal year, and I'll let the judge say more about that. But it seems like it's gone very quick, but we've got a lot done, and there's still some money left over, so that's always a good thing. Safe travels to everybody if you're heading to the Magistrate Judges Association joint meeting in Lexington today, tomorrow, and Thursday. I'm looking forward to finding out more about the ways that other counties are using their opioid settlement funds. And I understand that's going to be one of the big topics is best practices on that. And going forward, how we use our monies is going to be very important. So with all that, everything is good in the 5th.
Thank you. Master Barry?
Thank you, Judge. I don't have a lot, what he said. It's just hard to go behind Bill, after Bill. But thank everybody for all the work, department heads, everybody, sheriff, jailer, Nick, everybody. Thank everybody. Everybody does a good job, and I'll keep this short, and that's good. All's good in one.
Thank you. Mr. Gold?
Things are good in the county attorney's office. Busy, very busy, but good. Looks like we have a great forecast for the WC Handy Blues and Barbecue Festival. We'll be welcoming a whole lot of people into Henderson. Since Henderson was just voted one of the top 20 friendliest towns in Southern Living magazine, it's a great time for us to show that off as we have all these people that are going to be coming into our city. So I encourage you as you go down to the festival, one of my favorite things to do is look at license plates, because you see them from just about every state in the nation. And that's something that we can really be proud of, not just as a chance to show off our community, but it's also one of the few weeks in Henderson where we import dollars into our economy. So often we're exporting them to Evansville or Owensboro or Nashville or places like that. But this is 1 week a year where we've got people coming in and injecting new money into our economy, and some of those tourism dollars. So that's a great thing. I think there's a really good lineup, and at least according to the Weather Channel right now, weather is looks like it's going to cooperate, not be too hot, and no rain. So that'll be great.
They've only been right once this year.
Leave it to a farmer to bring it down on weather. And since you chimed in, Master Southard, how about you?
I just want to say thanks to the road department for, we just had the wettest May in 110 years, I think is what it was. And we had some ditch issues, we had some road washouts, we had some problems, but y'all got on it and got it fixed, and I appreciate it, because unfortunately I've got a wet district. And y'all made it work, and I appreciate it very much. Farming's been a little rough, still going on, which should have been wrapped up a month ago. We're getting there. Be patient with us. We're still in the roads. We're still moving up and down the highway. So, other than that, all's good in District 3.
Thank you, Master Southard. Master Tompkins.
Well, as you well know, District 2 is just prime with activity, and along with that comes a little bit of pain from time to time, but we are addressing those things. I think Nick and his crew have done a great job. We've established good partnerships with local contacts on all the solar construction, and while nothing's perfect, we are working with them in lockstep to make sure roads remain passable and safe. So I have weekly meetings with both construction companies installing these to try to maintain a good relationship and make sure everybody stays safe and they get in and get what they need to get done and get moving on. Battery storage is another topic that we've been working on, and we're actively working with everybody on that as well. But I did have a positive thing that I got to participate in. I'd like to thank Sheriff Stauffer. I got to ride along with Deputy Ledbetter on a second shift just recently last Friday, and it was a great experience, very eye-opening, a great example of Sheriff Stauffer's leadership. This particular deputy was fantastic when it came to, in my mind, what we should be, community policing, making people comfortable and not automatically instilling that, oh my gosh, reaction they have a lot of places when it comes to interactions with law enforcement. So just wanted to commend Deputy Ledbetter and Sheriff Stauffer and say thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to doing it again. Outside of that, Judge, that's all for District 2.
Excellent. Master Putman.
Thank you, Judge. All of this is just so hard to follow. I mean, really, it's, all I can say is all is good in the fourth. All my roads are good. My ditches aren't flooding. Just all is good in the fourth. Thank you, Judge.
Sure.
Real quick. Can we go, I guess I need to ask now, can we go back out for bid for tree cutting?
The road committee met before this meeting, and the initial vendor that we chose for the tree cutting bid, it does not have the ability to live up to the bid that he submitted. And Nick asked if he could take it all out to bid again, and I don't see how we can't, because right now the vendor we're using has said he must stop. I guess he bid too low, and I entertain a motion to go back out to bid for our tree cutting contract.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good luck, Nick. Good luck. So yes, since we met last, a lot has happened. Really, really proud of our economic development team and fiscal court for helping incentivize the $80 million expansion of Hydro Aluminum. Found out it's pronounced Hydro Aluminum, from the Norwegian CEO. I wouldn't contradict him. So 32 new jobs at an average of $40 an hour, including benefits, is always good, always welcome. They're great. Corporate citizen here, and I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. Everybody loves the new and shiny thing, bringing new companies to your community, and certainly examples like Pratt are point of pride. You know, when a company like Pratt looks across the nation and chooses us, I think it's a psychological boost for a community, and it certainly is exciting, and it's great to bring new experiences and experience into Henderson County. But when the people who have lived with you for 20 years, understand your community pretty well, decide to keep on investing, I think that's a huge compliment. You know, that Hydro is a global company, thousands of employees, several facilities in the United States. They could have made this investment other places. They chose Henderson. Almost as much as landing a new company, I think when your existing companies expand and reinvest in your community, it really makes me happy, because we're always talking about Henderson County improving our workforce, including our education system, including our infrastructure. And I think when Hydro makes a decision like that, it is an indication that we are succeeding in some fashion in those things, even though sometimes it may not feel like it. Global corporations with a wide view of those situations in the world, in deciding to spend $80 million in your community, seem to be indicating that we're making progress in those fronts. So that's good to know. You also might have seen where Pittsburgh Tank and Towers made a new investment in their facilities here and going to add some more jobs. So that's all good stuff. I was recently in Washington, D.C. as part of a delegation with Kentuckians for Better Transportation, talking about the importance of transportation infrastructure and using my time individually with some of the congressional delegation and their legislative assistants to, again, talk about I-69 and the bridge. And we have a $200 million application with one of the federal grant programs now to bring obviously more money back to the bridge project, which will have the effect of continuing to shorten the timeline and perhaps reduce the length of time that tolls are applied to the bridge. So fingers crossed on that. The legislature, right at the end of its term, with a lot of help from Robbie Mills, allocated $150 million towards incentive money or matching money for these applications. These federal grants are often subject to states bidding on the amount of money they will throw into the pot to get the grant, up to almost the 50-50. So a $200 million grant, many states will throw up another $200 million in order to get that money. It puts states in a position of bidding against one another. It's not just about the quality or appropriateness of the project, it's also about how much money states can bring to the table. Kentucky has $150 million more now for I-69 to be able to do that, so that's great news. And Senate Transportation Committee Chair Jimmy Higdon, Robbie Mills, and Secretary of Transportation Jim Gray worked really hard together to get that done right at the end of the session. So it was very cool. Many of you know and are experiencing driving on the new sections of I-69 now, and it's very interesting to do. It gives you a different perspective of how the construction's gone, and even parts of it that aren't in the section that heads towards the river, including 2084, or the old 41 as we knew it. It's been turned into a two-way road now, and it is open up to just past Washington Street. So that's really kind of neat to see, because the ancillary projects with Section 1, like that area, 2084, the roundabouts, it's changing not only the way we're going to cross that river, but it's changing the way major intersections in our community look, for the better, I think. And if you've ever tried to go to Algonquin's, it was always kind of a maze to get there. Now it's easy. And that not to ramble too much about it, but it's just very interesting to me. The section of that intersection that is east of 2084 is all coming out. The big loop to get on I-69 now, that is all coming out. Those will no longer be used. And that is ground that will probably be given to the city and potentially could be used to expand, potentially be used to expand the Arlington neighborhood, if the city so chooses. And as we're looking for ground that can be annexed and used for housing development, something we need, something that's adjacent to cities so they have city utilities, I think that's fantastic. What the city decides to do in the end is up to them. But potentially helping in a win-win situation for the creation of these new, roads and roundabouts and intersections, and the way everybody worries about those, balanced against some of the benefit of all this. And it's not even talking about the bridge and creating I-69's link from Port Huron, Michigan, all the way down to the Tennessee border, which is going to be transformational for many parts of that corridor. So anyway, having said all that, I will shut up and entertain a motion.
Judge, if I may, I just want to thank Ron Burleson for sitting in for Brent Jacobs today. Thanks,
job.
Ron. Stepping way out of his job description from our office. And,
He's done it many
Brent.
times. He's a good man. Good man. Everybody wears lots of hats in this courthouse. Yeah. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have motion and a second. All those in favor can leave. Have a happy Handy Fest.